right, Shalom. Before I start, I'm going to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash, double honors to the elders and apostles, the great millstone, peace, blessings, and salutations to all the elect Akim, Wa'akwath, learning and teaching in truth and sincerity. Another video through the Spirit, your brother Malak from GMS Detroit. This one right here, this is from the brothers out there in LA, one of the camps, Inland Empire, East Indian guy, or at least, that's how he appeared on the outside, right? Most likely Elam, but he was cordial. He didn't come up scoffing. He had a couple of sincere questions and they got answered, right? The brothers dealt with him patiently and peacefully, but he went on to make a statement that just simply wasn't true. And that's the sentiment of that statement is something that is reinforced in this country by the Edomites so that they can try to clear themselves of blame and guilt, right? The so-called white man annihilated the native population to have authority over this land from 100% of the population down to 1%, right? And this is, on paper, right? Because we're dealing with Gad and Reuben specifically. Although you have the other Northern Kingdom tribes here as well. Gad and Reuben specifically were butchered, diseased, and displaced. That is how they lost their land. Predominantly. A common misnarrative that the so-called white man has reverberated in this country, and now other peoples have started to repeat it, is that, they were already warring with each other. They were having, tribal warfare. So we didn't know. All nationalities of people throughout all kingdoms, throughout all times, have had inner conflict. As the sun shines and as the moon sparkles, that's just how that goes. The Native American population did not wipe themselves out. The so-called white man did. And that's biblical prophecy. And so now he has to deal with that blame, and soon he's going to have to deal with the punishment for doing so. And he's trying to dodge accountability. So that's the point of this video. All right, I'm going to let some of this play, and I got another clip, and we're going to go look at some info.
Well, bro, not to disrespect you or anything, but didn't the white man build America?
No, he did not. No, bro, that's crazy.
No, the slaves built America. And see, once again, that is the ignorance of the American dream of this country. The great mighty white man came here for religious freedom and built up. No, he came here on demon time, and through mass murder, rape, and robbery, he amalgamated his kingdom.
Slavery built America, bro. What the white man did when he first got here, Native Americans were here. He massacred them, bro.
But 90% of Native Americans died by
smallpox. Yeah, smallpox.
Who brought those diseases? Now that much is true. A very great percentage of Native Americans, which are Israelites, dealing specifically with Gad and Reuben in the North American continent, much of them did die by disease. Once again, who brought those diseases? And was that an accidental spread of diseases? Or was it purposeful? And when you look it up, you come to find out it was done on purpose.
Yes, they did. With the Gatling guns and all that stuff. They'll wait till the men out there fighting and all that stuff. They'll come to the village. And we got books on this, bro. And they massacred the children, the women, burnt them alive and all that, bro.
But the Native Americans were pretty much killing themselves.
No. They had wars between each other, but when the white man came, they all figured out this is the real enemy. So they got different tribes that fought against.
See, they were all killing themselves, and that's the narrative that the so-called white man is like to push. So what we're going to do is go to Genesis and see what the prophecy says. And like I said, all nationalities of people throughout all kingdoms have had disagreements with each other, right? Certain tribes were at peace, certain tribes weren't. That did not give the permission to come slaughter people and take their land. And this is one of the common, narrative, one of the common speaking points that the so-called white man likes to use to clear himself of guilt, right? Hey, using that same logic, why did anybody dealing with World War I and II, we should have just let the Germans annihilate that other group of Europeans, right? That was just white on white crime, wasn't it not? Why did America get into the war? Why did Britain get into the war? You see what I'm saying? So we can use that same logic to argue, but they don't like it when you use it on them. You're called a racist or anti-Semitic. Fucking cocksuckers. This is Genesis. We're gonna see what the prophecy says. How did the Native Americans lose this land? Genesis 49 and 19. It says, Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. Right. So that's the prophecy. The fact that the Gadites would be overcome by a troop. What was that troop? The colonizers who came over here, which eventually went on to become the Americans. The colonizers and their descendants, through their cavalry, through their different forms of warfare, straight up frontier attacks, right? Musket guns, which evolved into Gatling guns, and also covert tactics, disease warfare, chicken pox blankets, killing off of the food resources, slaughtering the buffalo, deforestation, right? Putting up dams and blocking off water and river flow. These are all different methods that troop overcame Gad, which were the Edomites, the so-called white men. They didn't kill themselves off entirely through intertribal warfare. That's an American myth. So right here, just typing this in on Google, said how did the Native American population decrease? That's what I typed in. Even AI will tell the truth this time. It says the Native American population significantly declined after European contact due to a combination of factors, including disease, warfare, and you should add disease warfare, because that was one, forced displacement, being forced off their lands into horrible places known as the reservations, and disruption of the traditional ways of life. It says disease, European diseases to which Native Americans had no immunity, such as smallpox, measles, and influenza, caused widespread epidemics and decimated populations. Warfare and conflict. Conflicts between Native Americans and European settlers, as well as internal conflicts, resulted in significant casualties and displacement. Right. Certain of the tribes betrayed their brethren to side with the so-called whites, but many united to fight against them. That's where you get men like Tecumseh out of Ohio, right? He tried to unite all the tribes to fight. But if that would have happened, then that prophecy in Genesis 49 would not have been fulfilled. Hey, up here in Michigan, we have lots of cities named after Indian chiefs. Pontiac, Wyandotte. These were men who had notably fought against the colonizers, the British, and against the Americans, and ultimately lost. That's how it went down. Forced displacement and removal. European colonization led to the forced removal of Native Americans from their ancestral lands, disrupting their cultures and traditional ways of life. Right. So plain and simple. When you show up and colonize a people, you remove them from their normal way of life. This was done on purpose by the so-called white man. Genocide, straight up, straight down. Some historians argue that the policies and actions of European colonizers towards Native Americans amounted to genocide with the deliberate intent to destroy Native American populations and cultures. This is true. How do we know that? What's one of the popular phrases? Kill the Indian, save the man. And that was from who? The guy who put up the Carlisle Indian School Reservation. His last name is Pratt. Something Pratt, right? He was known as the ultimate Americanizer. I think I've done a video with him before. He was known for taking Indians and converting them basically to being an American Christian through his boarding school. Matter of fact, hold up. Yep, Richard Henry Pratt. Yep, from the Carlisle Indian School, which has now become a military type school, right? This is how these people were decimated. Our brothers and sisters, the Gadites and Reubenites, the so-called Native American Indians and Seminole Indians, which the Reubenites never surrendered. The American military simply decided to leave them alone, right? This is how they lost their land. This is the history of America. For you so-called white people to drive around in your Outbacks, right? Your Subaru Outback, to be able to go to TGIF, Thank God It's Fridays, to be able to host a little party for Little Billy. This is what your ancestors did. Slaughtered, butchered, manipulated, brainwashed. And now that's how you have the freedoms to do what you do. You didn't get this land through honesty. You kidnapped, you killed, you raped, you took children, you killed children. So what's going to happen to you in return? That's why you're trying to hide this history. So coming back here, it says what enslavement? It says Native Americans were also enslaved by colonists, further contributing to population decline and societal disruption. Right. They were forced to work under horrible conditions, which ultimately led to the Edomites coming to get Southern Kingdom, because Northern Kingdom's bodies were simply breaking down at a rapid rate. So who they get? Judah, Benjamin, and Levi from where? The west coast of Africa. All right. You know, if you weren't meeting quotas, they were cutting off fingers, cutting off noses. And if they suspected you of hiding gold that they forced you to dig up, they, you know, break your teeth out, right? Torture you, cut your ears, cut your toes, all kinds of things. Loss of land. It says the loss of land through treaties and conquest depraved Native American tribes of their resources and livelihood, leading to starvation and disease. Plain and simple. So this is how they lost the land, y'all. Not through tribal warfare. Alone. Right here. This is a famous pictures of mountains of buffalo skeletons. These are things that the United States servicemen, armymen, right, colonists did to starve out native populations. Because biblically, and Gad and Reuben, they still carried some of those biblical traditions. One of them is being nomadic, right? You would live in a land or cultivate a land for a certain amount of years and you get up and move. Well, the Gadites, they would follow certain animals, chiefly the buffalo. So what did the settlers do, colonizers do, the murderers? They killed the food source, slaughtered buffalo. That's why you don't see any damn buffalo anymore, rarely, unless you're really, really high up somewhere like in Canada. All this man's fault. This place used to run wild with buffalo. You used to be able to eat good around here. Now what do you have? Burger King and McDonald's. These motherfuckers are demons, y'all. And that's why, now let's go back to scripture real quick. The reason why they've taught people to repeat those talking points is because they're trying to shift that blame. But through the way the internet, ultimately by way of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, we got this information back now, y'all. And the finger's on this son of a bitch and he doesn't like it. Habakkuk 2:16. Thou art filled with shame for glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. The cup of the Lord's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory. So this man has shameful spewing on his once glorious nation and deeds now. You did the founding fathers were demons. Some of them were faggots, and most of them were enslavers. Most of the people on the bills, on the dollar bills, were demons. Right? Some of them had slaves' teeth in their mouth, or slaves' teeth in their mouth. One of them was raping a girl named Sally. How about that? The history on this man is out, and he doesn't like it. And so he spent a very long time with his brainwashing media campaign, right? Many of the slogans, many of the TV shows, many of the movies, much of the misinformation that we learned in the United States American mythological school system, because that's exactly what the fuck it is. You learning lies in that damn room. Smallpox blankets. It says referred to the blankets that were intentionally contaminated with the smallpox virus used as a weapon during the 18th and 19th centuries. And this was used, it tells you straight up, during the French and Indian War, right? And during it says what, American Civil War. And so, and this is something that these people, Esau, he used it against Gad and Reuben, and then he went on to use it against his own brothers, his own people. So once again, this isn't made up, this isn't false, this is real. It says the purpose of smallpox blankets was to spread the disease among Native American populations who were particularly vulnerable to smallpox due to their lack of immunity. This was part of a larger effort to suppress Native American resistance to European expansion. Straight up, straight down. All right, I'm gonna play a couple clips. Now, a common number that they like to use is 5 million, but they're lowballing it. Remember, y'all, whenever Edom reports on his wicked deeds and wrongdoing, he lowballs it. But when he reports on other people's deeds, he likes to highball it, right? There was more than 5 million so-called Native Americans. There could have easily been, estimated potentially 100 million plus, right? Just think about it. Our people came over here a couple thousand years ago. They was over here breeding and having children. It took us less than that to reach the amount of people here. America has 330 million now, right? We reached that, inside of a couple centuries. How much less, how much more do you think the Gadites and Reubenites was able to produce inside of a couple millennia? So don't certain pieces of information, when you hear it, you just have to understand and multiply certain numbers in your head, because he's a notorious liar.
The population of Native Americans in 1492 was 140 million people.
Oh wow, this is one of the rare few times that Edomite will actually admit to there being 100 plus so-called Native Americans, because a lot of times they like to say 5.
In 1600 it was 15 million.
So from 140 to 15, that's a big chunk.
People. That's 125 million directly dead. But it's not, because it's 5 generations. It's 108 years. 5 generations. That's 20 years for a generation. That means there's all these women making babies during that time period. To drop the population by 125 million, you probably have to kill 175 million people. Because you got to kill babies too. Population of Native Americans.
Yep, so it wasn't just adults, you had babies getting killed. And that guy was doing a lecture. So now, hang on.
Before European contact, there were approximately 10 million Native Americans.
See, there they go, lowballing. See, so certain people will tell the truth and certain people will lowball.
By the late 19th century, that number plummeted to less than 300,000 due to diseases and brutal violence brought on by Europe.
And that's, today they say there's, several hundreds of thousands, which, right, not all Gadites and Reubenites went and filled out, the census, but you see that it's down to a small number, and that's prophecy, y'all. That's prophecy. Matter of fact, hey, what is it saying? We go back to, let me see. Yep. Okay, hang on 1 second. In Deuteronomy, the 33rd chapter, because Deuteronomy 33 also has some of the prophecies that the children of Israel would be dealing with, the 12 tribes. Deuteronomy 33 and 6. Let Reuben live and not die, and let not his men be few. Y'all, this is Moses. This is Moses prophesying, man, because Moses knew the end of things. Remember, he was up in the chariot, y'all. He was showed the things of the end. Our brothers and sisters, damn near got exterminated. We know the tribe of Ephraim on Puerto Rico, the Taínos, was almost exterminated, down to hundreds of men. That's why they're known as Pariam, fruitful, to be fruitful. Joseph, he will add. The Heavenly Father has it on the spirit of the Ephraimites to always be pushing out babies, because Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, has tried to annihilate our brothers and sisters, and then he's tried to fucking lie about it God damn it. Motherfucker's a whole liar.
Diseases and brutal violence brought on by European colonization. Known as the Trail of Tears, Native American tribes such as the Cherokee, the Choctaw, and the Seminole were forcefully relocated from their lands in the southeastern United States to present-day Oklahoma and further. Countless massacres were initiated by European settlers in the 19th century, killing scores of Indians in order to push westward. Notable massacres include the Sand Creek Massacre in 1864 and the Wounded Knee Massacre in 1890. In the mid-20th century, the U.S. government forcibly sterilized thousands of Native Americans as part of a eugenics program aimed at controlling the population of indigenous peoples. The most evil act, though, was the complete destruction of Native American culture and identity. Before European contact.
So that is how our brothers and sisters lost their land and their lives. Predominantly, overwhelmingly, not through intertribal warfare. That is not the number one way that they all ended up, down so bad. The so-called white man is to blame, and you're gonna have to pay for that. And obviously, this is our punishment, right? This is prophecy. And who was the tool used to carry out that prophecy? Esau, Edom. He was the rod in the hand of the Heavenly Father. But into the time period that we're coming into, y'all, he's about to be paid back for it, and he's dodging. He's trying to as hard as he can. Let me get about one more video. I'll probably let this whole video play out.
Intrigue by the native tribe.
I'll get a couple precepts, and that'll be it. And the funny thing is, y'all, our people's loving nature, they showed this motherfucker how to survive over here. And what did he do? Stab him in the back. What's it called? Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving. Come on, man.
Before the arrival of white settlers in 1492, there were around 5 million Indians in America. Yet,
see another lowball number. We just heard 140 totaling up. So don't, like I said, whenever they're reporting on their misdoings, the so-called white man loves to underreport. But when he's speaking about his good, so-called, he likes to overreport. And when he's speaking about another nationalities of people's bad, he likes to overreport. So, hey, this motherfucker's a motherfucker.
by 1800, the number plummeted to 600,000, and by 1900, the number was only 237,000, the lowest in history. More than a dozen tribes, such as the Pequot, Mohegan, and Massachusetts, were completely wiped out. But what happened to them? What led to the near extinction of a whole race of people? In the early dawn of the...
Y'all see that bullshit down there? Biden's apology to Native Americans. Man, fuck that bullshit. We gonna make y'all apologize, alright? We gonna show you something.
17th century, the untouched panorama of the New World became punctuated by the silhouette of English ships. Initially, the English were met with a mixture of fear and intrigue by the native tribes. Despite this, it was early aid from the natives that gave the settlers a fighting chance, enabling them to put down roots and establish the first English settlements on American soil. Trade emerged as the delicate lifeline connecting the New England colonists and the indigenous tribes. This partnership led to the flourishing of local economies, so much so that the Plymouth colony severed its financial umbilical cord to England within just 5 years of arriving in America. The settlers and the Native Americans established a distinctive trading system. This system blended the traditions of the Native Americans with the practices of the settlers. Native Americans supplied a variety of local resources, including animal skins, food, and crucial knowledge about the land and its ecosystems. In return, the settlers provided them with beads and wampum, which was a form of currency used by the settlers. However, their exchanges weren't only about physical items. There was a significant exchange of ideas as well. In fact, the spiritual conversations between these cultures were so profound that the first Bible in the New World was translated into the language of the Algonquin, a Native American tribe. However, as the sands of time slipped through the hourglass, the harmonious relations began to fray. The native tribes lived by hunting and gathering the abundant resources of the land. Their culture and religion placed them in the role of stewards, not owners of the lands, preserving its abundance for the future. The white settlers who arrived brought with them a different view of the land. They also brought with them a slew of unfamiliar diseases such as smallpox, tuberculosis, measles, cholera, and the bubonic plague, which all ravaged the native population.
And this is why the scriptures say never trust your enemy, y'all. Because in one moment he's shaking your hand, but what is he truly waiting for? That opportune time to attack and to displace you and to take over. And the scriptures literally clearly warn us of this, y'all. That's why hey, what does it say? Literally, Sirach 12 and 10. Never trust thine enemy, for like his iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. Though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him, and thou shalt be unto him as if thou hast wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust hath not been altogether wiped away. He will pretend to be your friend. He will pretend to love you, to care about you. Thank you for showing us how to farm here in this strange land. Thank you for showing us where and then what they do. Turn around, get to raping, robbing, and murdering. Sticking folks' heads on pikes, scalping, right? Shoving a goddamn bayonet through your chest. You don't even know what a fucking bayonet is, and they shoving it in your chest. Giving you alcohol to get you drunk and then raid your villages at night. Fire, water, right? We know all these things. This is real history. That nitty gritty, that ugly shit, grimy shit that the so-called white man established himself off of. It says, set him not by thee, lest when he hath overthrown thee, he stand up in thy place. Neither let him sit at thy right hand, lest he seek to take thy seat. And thou at the last remember my words and break their wit. And that's exactly what he did. Butcher them, learn from them, because it was opportune. And then when he had the time, when he had the power, took them over and stood up in their place. To where now you got people who are Edomites trying to claim to be Native Americans, right? And they're obviously not going to be saved. That's why not everybody on the census who's claiming Native American actually is. Some of them are descendants of rape babies, and some of them are just Edomites who are, you get the phrase the $5 Indian. Their ancestors who signed up for the Dawes Rolls to receive those benefits that were supposed to go to the Gadites and Reubenites, right? The certain lands, certain grants, the casinos, which mostly those terror babies own. Which you're going to have certain brothers and sisters who look like Edomites and heathens and are Israelites. We know that. But we also know the history, especially dealing with Gad and Reuben in this country in America. Go watch the movie Killers of the was it Killers of the Sun Moon? Or Killers of the hang on. That was a damn good movie, y'all. Yup, this was a damn good movie. Killers of the Flower Moon. It shows how I forget the family here, the Edomite family, but you had this Edomite family. They were marrying into this specific Gadite tribe that had ownership over a patch of land that had a whole bunch of oil and resources under it. And they would marry the women and they would fucking assassinate them, kill the men, blow people up, poison them, slit throats, suffocate people in their sleep. That's how Esau got what he got. Or Silaki, I was waiting till I cut off that bumpy part of the road. Oh, guess it's supposed to be some storms later. Okay, whatever. It says real love. This is this overview. It says real love crosses paths with unspeakable betrayal. As Molly Buckhart, you have the Buckharts. Oh no, my bad. I was getting her mixed up with the guy. That's one of the Gadite women. Molly Buckhart, a member of the Osage Nation, tries to save her community from a spree of murders fueled by oil and greed. Right. These Gadite women, Israelite women, were being tricked into getting married to these white men. And these white men were straight up killing them. Straight up, straight the fuck down, y'all. Straight up, straight the fuck down. So let's come back. God damn it.
Population. This phenomenon, known as the virgin soil effect, led to devastatingly high, and they also brought with them a slew of unfamiliar diseases such as smallpox, tuberculosis, measles, cholera, and the bubonic plague, which all ravaged the native population. This phenomenon, known as the virgin soil effect, led to devastatingly high death rates among Native Americans who lacked immunity to these foreign pathogens. In response to this calamity, colonial governments sought to convert the afflicted natives to Christianity, relocating the newly baptized praying Indians to praying towns, precursors to modern reservations. Tensions eventually erupted into King Philip's War, causing widespread destruction and marking the end of peaceful relations between settlers and natives. The settlers, now known as Americans, managed to carve out a distinct identity from the ashes. The subsequent years saw devastating conflicts between the white Americans and the natives, leading to the destruction of more tribes and the loss of more lands. The 1800s gold rush brought even more devastation to the native tribes, bringing white settlers from every place known to man, tearing up the natives' land rights, then overusing the land where gold was found, creating drought and starvation for themselves and for the native people, then forcing...
Esau's such a fucking idiot. He'll destroy the land under him, y'all. Y'all seeing this shit, man. They put their own damn selves in famine because they're fucking demons. Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, is death and hell. And that's why he's going to be tossed into the lake of fire, like scripture say.
The natives onto
and the lake of fire is going to be here in America. This place being destroyed. Esau, Edom's kingdom being relinquished by way of flames.
Reservations, even further from their homes. Despite everything, the natives fought relentlessly to defend their lands and identities. Battle after battle after battle. But their resistance could not overcome the military might and technological superiority of the U.S. Army.
Why is that? Because of prophecy that Genesis 49, the truth overcame him, y'all. The Heavenly Father set it up to where Esau, Edom was going to have the technological upper hand so that he could win. Because man to man, he wasn't going to do it. So he had to be given his tools, his blessing, his sword, his weaponry that he uses to kill all throughout the earth.
And over time, they found themselves exiled to reservations and isolated, inhospitable regions. Throughout this tumultuous period, there were efforts from the settler side to establish peace. Various treaties were signed, peace agreements made, and laws passed to protect native lands and rights. Some settlers even intermarried with natives, blurring the lines between the two cultures. However, these efforts were often undermined by larger forces of expansion and greed. So, in the 19th century, while the American population grew by 20 to 30% every decade, the indigenous population dramatically declined. Today, indigenous and Alaska Native peoples represent only 1.3% of the total U.S. population. Currently, about 310 Native American reservations scatter across the United States, covering about 2.3% of the nation's territory. These remote lands offer substandard living conditions and limited access to vital resources. Due to lax environmental and health regulations on reservations, Native tribes are frequently exposed to significant amounts of radioactive and other hazardous waste. This leads to cancer rates much higher than the rest of the country. Despite no longer being the targets of extermination, indigenous peoples face ignorance, invisibility, and discrimination.
So that's where we're at with it, y'all. That's how, excuse all the background, y'all. still slaves to this day, y'all. But this is how our Native American brothers and sisters lost their lands and their lives. Don't let no asshole convince you otherwise. Right? That's the reality of the situation. I'm gonna go back and screenshot one of those. I wanted to use one of those images. Because in this school system, they try to teach it. It was, oh, see, you didn't buy the lands fair and square. First off, it wasn't yours to buy. People were already living on it. But when you're dealing with a deceptive demon, he'll do things like that, right? And ultimately, what he's trying to do, y'all, is escape the blame. And we're at the point now where his offspring have to deal with it. And that's why it says, y'all should already know, one of the go-tos is Sirach. His descendants are dealing with that reproach, y'all. Sirach 41:6. The children of sinners are abominable children. This people's demonic ass forefathers set this land and this country up demonically. So now they're dealing with that reproach. It says, and they that are conversant in the dwelling of the ungodly, the inheritance of sinners' children shall perish, and their posterity shall have a perpetual reproach. The children will complain of an ungodly father, because they shall be reproached for his sake. And that's what he's dealing with. He's being reproached, the modern day so-called white man, because of the wicked deeds of his fathers. Therefore, he's trying to come up with ways to throw it off. Critical race theory, misinformation, right? Shadow banning, just calling you racist. But the Heavenly Father is going to make him pay ultimately. And in the very same verse where he made us to suffer, it lets us know what's going to happen to him. Genesis 49 and what? Taking it back, y'all. Genesis 49:16. Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. And that's the beautiful thing about this verse. It starts off bad, but it ends perfect. We're going to overcome him as a nation, not just Gad. We're going to take down Esau, Edom, and all these heathen, y'all. So that's it. That's how you deal with that common myth, that common lie. Just pop open Google and look up how the Native Americans died off. And it was more than 5 million. Estimates 140 million plus. Alright, not to include the other 100 million Negroes. You do the math. We give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim. Wakakorash, the honors to the elders and apostles, great millstone. Peace, blessings, and salutations to all the elect Akim wa Akwat, learning and teaching in truth and sincerity. Shalom.